So this video assumes you've carried out your SWOT analysis and now you're writing an essay about your strengths and weaknesses. On the right hand side here you can see I've started my essay, I have the title in place and I have a short introduction. So the introduction is explaining that my placement is going to be for Kids Fun, which is a face painting company in Ayrshire, and I've also explained to the reader what SWOT analysis stands for. So now what I'm aiming to do is take each one of my strengths over here on the left hand side that I did in the previous video, and I want to expand each one of them so that they're a paragraph long. So I want to go into a lot more detail than just those 4 sentences there. And this is a really useful skill if you're filling out a job application or a college or a university personal statement, because it's this expanding skill that you need so that you get across all of your experiences. So when you're doing that, there's 3 things that you really want to consider. So the 3 main elements that you really need in each paragraph are coming up here in the yellow. So we need much more detail. So we really want to go into detail about what you've been doing and how you've gone about it. And also how you've developed a skill. So that second one there, how did you develop this? Was it through work, through volunteering, through college or school? And then last of all, why is something going to be a particular strength for placement or for your industry? So make the connection between your strengths and between what you're about to go on to do. So I'm going to focus on this strength here along the top. I'm a creative person. And I'm going to start just by opening out with that reworded as a sentence. So one of my main strengths is that I am a creative person, but I'm going to expand on that now and say I enjoy watching YouTube tutorials online and I'm always sketching and painting. So I've given the reader a little bit more detail there, and now I'm going back to explain where that came from. So I developed this skill at school through taking Art for Hires. During that course I visited a lot of galleries, took classes in life drawing and did a comic book design for my final work. So this is answering the question, where did those skills come from? And now I'm making the connection with placement and saying I think this is a valuable strength for this placement, as I will be able to design new face paint ideas for the children. And then lastly, I'm closing out by making a link between this strength and all of this industry I want to go into and saying, I think creativity is important in general for makeup artists so they can innovate when working in fashion, theatre or television. So what started out as one sentence up here on the left has now expanded out and it's sitting at 6.5 lines. So if you continue to do that for every single one of these, sure enough you're going to build up a really good personal statement. So I'm just going to highlight these different sections to point out which parts I've expanded here. So this yellow part here that I've highlighted is really me giving a bit more detail. So instead of just saying I'm creative, I've described what my creativity is. And then this next section that I'm highlighting here, I've gone into the detail of where that creativity came from. Where did that skill come from in my life? The last section here, the second last section that I am highlighting, is really making the connection with placement. So why is this going to be an important strength when I go for this particular placement? And then last of all, I'm highlighting where does this fit in terms of the industry I want to go into. So what's the connection between the things I'm good at and what I would like to do in the future. So you wouldn't need to highlight any of yours in colour, I'm just doing it so it stands out a little bit more for you and it's easy to build up your own one. So I'm going to do another example using the 3rd line here where it says I am patient with children as I used to babysit. So you'll be able to see me build that up in the same way and expand upon it. So it starts off, this placement involves working with children at parties. One of my strengths is that I am patient with children. I come from a large family and I often used to have to babysit for my younger cousins. Sometimes children can be very energetic or not very good at making decisions. I think my patience would be a strength on placement, as I would be able to talk to the children and let them take their time. Overall, I think patience is important in the makeup industry because you're working with clients and you want them to be happy with the final result every time. So you can see I've used the same methods of expanding out to take this from one sentence to a whole paragraph. Now it's really a similar process when you're looking at your weaknesses, but this time we're looking for 3 slightly different areas, but we're going to take the same idea. So I'm going to pick up this window here and just move it over to the left, and then we have the set of weaknesses here that we identified. So at the top there it says you want to give more detail, so that's going to be important, but this time we want to know how come this is a weakness, how do you know it's a weakness for you? And lastly, really thinking about why might it be a weakness for placement, or why might it be a weakness for your industry. So now I'm starting to expand that top weakness that I had there. So I'm talking about how I'm not a very confident person in general. So that's the first line the person's put in. And then they're starting to expand it and explain to us where this has come from. So they're saying, my lecturer at university has pointed out that I'm not very confident when presenting my makeup folios. I think this is because I'm just beginning and I'm quite critical of my work. I also find it difficult to speak out in front of groups of people. So right there, the student's given us a little bit more analysis as to where this feeling of this weakness has come from. And then she's moving on to say, I think this could be a weakness for placement because the staff and parents might not trust me to do the children's faces. So she's feeling that lack of confidence might be seen in others and they might not kind of trust her. And then the last off sentence is saying this might also be a weakness in the industry as customers are less likely to go to a makeup artist who is not confident in their own skills. So you can see if I use the highlighting there, this yellow section here is telling us a little bit about where this weakness might have come from or who's highlighted that this is a weakness. And then expanding out into the rest of the yellow, we've got a little bit more detail explaining maybe where it's come from or why it's there. And then this green section is telling us a bit about why it might be an issue on placement. And then lastly in the grey section, we're making the connection with the industry in general, why this might be a weakness for you.